whether or not politics have any kind of place inside business. And I think let's start with asking Joe a question. Joe, we both kind of feel like it'd be kind of crazy if anyone answers yes, but I'm very curious to know. I mean, especially in Madison, you are in Mad City, Wisconsin, known for something more than cheese, which is certainly sometimes occupying the State House. So tell me a little bit about that.
You know, I have always been deathly afraid to share anything about politics having to do with any of our businesses in general, or really, I'm not the person who marches around talking about, what I believe in general from a political standpoint. I think it's, and maybe this is too simple of a way to look at it, but no matter which way you go, you're going to alienate 50% of your potential customers by, and granted, not everyone's going to say, well, you're a Democrat, so I'm not going to patronize your business. But you certainly run that risk. And you're right, in a city like Madison where, although, I have to say this about Madison. As much as I think people's, I wish I could remember who tweeted, I think it was Christopher S. Penn, tweeted the parable about the Red Sox and Yankees and then transitioned it into the political story. That was a really great article, and I felt like it shed some really interesting light on politics in general. And when we're going to talk about it today, I thought it was a unique fit. Had I seen it before the show, we were putting it together, I would have included it. But the interesting thing about Madison is it seems like they're most interested in everyone having a voice. It's not so much that they're diehard Democrats or diehard Republicans. They just are diehard. They want you to be able to say how you feel and freedom of speech. That seems to be their major focus. As a matter of fact, there's a booth in the AJ Bombers location in Madison where two political sides have taken two different walls. It's like this freedom of speech booth. I didn't see it coming, and I didn't realize that was going to be the focus of Madison, and it certainly feels like that should be the focus of, is sort of letting someone say, see, and even here, I go down this road, and I'm starting to discuss my political preference, and I feel like I shouldn't be going down that road. And I know you've been through this before. Do you have a little story about the one political thing that you've shared, right?
Yeah, the whole Occupy movement thing. I should be really clear. I don't think that I'm especially supportive of it because I think that I don't really understand it very well. It seems like a bunch of people who have sort of very disparate voices, but I will say that I really support the right of people to be able to protest. I think it's an important thing that you have the opportunity and the ability to raise your voice. And especially when things happen like what happened in Portland, Oregon, what happened in Oakland and all that. I mean, that certainly raises everyone's standard because, I mean, this is a country, the U.S. is a country founded on the idea that you should be able to speak truth to power and protest your government. It's built into the Constitution. I get that part. To that specific movement, I'm not 100% sure I get it all, but I would say that, it's what it is. So I put up a post that was just kind of a parody thing that Guy Kawasaki had shared. I don't know where he got it, but was saying that, this 99% who was complaining about big corporations was protesting them using iPhones made by a very big corporation, one of the biggest in the world and whatever. And oh my gosh, it became this huge political argument. And the one thing that I felt, is I had no interest in actually defending anything nor fighting anything. I had no interest in carrying on the conversation with a bunch of people on Google Plus in this case, because I thought, I have no idea your political leanings. I have no idea your qualifications. I have no idea, if we're just having this conversation to have it. And at the end of the day, this discourse is happening in a social network and not out in some place that could actually be meaningful for the people involved. So I don't know. I think it's tricky. In my own case, I tend not to bring business and politics together, although I would say that I've certainly done some work to talk with and help some government types, connect up with different things. So to me, it's just an opportunity to help with the voice part. I mean, your biggest thing is that and what they really want is just to have a voice. I think that's probably the only place where I would go with the politics part of things.
Yeah. It's right. It runs right there with talking about religion. Although feels a little easier and safer, truthfully, to talk about religion than it does politics, which again you've got some experience with. Hey Phil, there's a tweet from Tracy Salingo that I thought we could include in the tweets as well. I thought I'd just give you that because I think she makes a really great point. Chris, unless you had something else towards it, I suppose we can go to the tweets that Phil has been able to pull out for us.
Sure, absolutely. I think that would be a great thing to do, and we can sort of riff on those and see what we got to have. Bye, Shelby. Thanks for spending some time with us. She had to leave early. Here we go. John Morgan, voicing your opinions on politics is the fastest way to alienate half of your audience. So I think John, who has a brand new book out, which I intend to finish up and get a review of, is saying what we agree is that, unless you're, I don't know, maybe you could alienate a lot fewer if you just, ticked off the libertarians or something. You just pick on a really small one. I don't know. Let's go. So Ann says, politics, it's a tough one. It could alienate buyers, but there are probably issues that you should take a stance on. That's a good point, Joe. I mean, there's obviously some things where you can't waffle on your voice. What do you think about that? Have you ever found yourself in that spot yet?
You know what? I'll give you an example, and I'm almost embarrassed to share it. Clearly, I think our whole country is supportive of veterans.
Sure.
And Veterans Day comes, and even then, I find myself hesitant to make a stance about, celebrating Veterans Day. As crazy as it sounds, I'm just so nervous about it. Whether that's warranted or not, this is about as honest as I get. This is exactly what happened. Here we were on Friday. It was Veterans Day. I certainly talked a little bit about it in my own personal feeds, but then when it came to talking about it inside businesses, I was very careful to not mention it at all, which in this case may have hurt us a little bit. I don't know. What do you think about that one?
Veterans Day is one of those ones, I can understand your premise, because it's one of those ones where people think, well, if somebody's sort of anti-war or all that. But you know what? I would say this. I would say that there's a lot of members of the armed service who are anti-war and who believe that they're fulfilling a civic duty. So I tend to be okay in supporting Veterans Day. And when people come out in argument of it, I tend to, just say, it's not that because you're pushing for war. It's not because you think that everything that the U.S. military or any military is positive or whatnot. You're supporting the people who took that choice. And, Jack's dad served in Vietnam a lot, and my grandfather served in World War II. And I would say that it's just one of those things where you're thanking people for their service, and you're remembering those people who didn't make it back, which doesn't really lend a political opinion about the war and military you're fighting. So that's sort of my stance on that. But see how tricky that is. I mean, that one is a great example of the question that was asked, which is, well, what if it's something you stand for? So I stand for people who served our country and served anybody's country. I don't necessarily always stand for people's business perspectives.
But yeah, I'm certainly, and this is well documented here on the show, I'm not the person who says you should be operating your business for everyone. But it really just makes me nervous. Like, I just don't want to upset anyone and have them biased against any of our businesses because of a belief one way or another. Again, I could be making a mistake. But what do you think? Yeah, go ahead, Phil. Sorry.
Oh, cool. We've got Tracy up. So in my industry, which is marketing, yes. Business, absolutely not. Oh, so, if you're marketing on behalf of a client, that's tricky. I mean, I haven't done political marketing. I've talked to, even my local mayor, and I've talked to even Rick Perry, believe it or not, back in the day. So I've talked to them, again, just about the tools of the voice, not, their stances. But I think I can understand it with that perspective.
It's funny, when I saw that, and the reason I asked Phil to grab it was because, we've said this before, I honestly believe everything is marketing. So any political statement that you make is some sort of a marketing message. And again, I may be being too cautious, but I feel like that being cautious that way can't do anything wrong. There's no risk. Well, maybe there's some, but there's not much risk in being overcautious.
Absolutely so. So let's take a look around and see if there's any more that we've been able to scare up. There's one from our friend Brew. I think it's okay to make your employees aware of political issues that will affect your or their business. Again, if it's so there's politics and there's politics. There's there's issues and things rolling around, like, there's this whole thing about like the it's not even net neutrality anymore, but this like all kinds of new stuff running its way through Congress right now that will really adversely impact the internet. And Vint Cerf, who's like kind of one of the creators of the internet, such as it is today, has really put out his voice lately saying, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, this will screw everything up. And I mean, I think that's something worth talking about if we all believe, similarly that these things need to happen. But again, it's one of those ones where it's an issues-based kind of thing. And I don't know. I mean, we work with, I tend to work with really large companies as well as small. So then the question would be, what if I'm taking a stance that's opposite of Comcast or something, for example? I don't know. I think it's a choice we're all going to have to make. In my case, I sort of case. I would never probably argue something that I felt strongly against, but I wouldn't not help a company in some other capacity that wasn't related to an issue that I don't have. I don't know.
I think I just it took me almost your entire answer to figure out what Bruce said in the beginning of his tweet, and that is answer of the week.
That's the answer of the week.
It took me a while to come up with that, but when I saw Bruce's tweet, there it is, answer of the week. I think it's okay to make your employees aware. So it felt to me like he was referring to almost corporate culture, right? And all of us, anyone with a company or building something, has some sort of culture that very well may have some political spin to it inadvertently. I mean, that's I'm quite sure some of the policies that Angie and I have put in place in our company scream our political preference, whatever that might be.
Correct. Brian Mayer just put up something. I'm sure that Kyle and Phil will find it really quick. It's does avoiding politics make you inauthentic? My take on this is no. My take on this is, authenticity, by the way, the most misunderstood word in the world. Dave Zilla, somebody you should all follow, Dave like Dave and Zilla like Godzilla, said, I don't think people want authenticity. They want something different than that. They want... I can't remember the word he used. They wanted, clarity and that sort of a thing. But I would say, no, it doesn't make you inauthentic. It means it's a choice you've made. I also don't choose to tell you when I poop. Well, that's not really true. I like to tell you when I poop. But most people don't. And I would say that, that's not an authenticity choice. It's a curation choice. Now, there are situations where your politics may or may not then strongly, I mean, should I wear swastikas on the weekend? This would be an issue. But I would say that, for the most part, if I don't tell you who I chose to vote for president, okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great point, though, by Brian, but I feel the same way. I don't think it makes a company or a person inauthentic by not sharing that. It's one of those things, too. I don't walk around sharing that I'm Catholic. So, whatever. Hey, Phil, did you find any other tweets? I know we have sort of a backup. Oh, we did. Found another one.
I am a firm believer in the duty of being engaged as a citizen, but I see that role as quite separate from business. Well, so that sort of sounds like this is my private, this is my private business, but this is not, what I'm going to do in the larger story of my business. And again, I think that's a matter of sort of, choosing how you want to narrate. I don't see a problem with it. You?
No, I don't. Again, it's a big, you own your own business and you certainly can run it however way you so choose. But it seems like we're hearing most people want to keep politics out of their business. They see it as fine for their personal life. And then, we could certainly get into, and I think we'll avoid it, the whole personal brand discussion and how it relates to your company and are they both one and the same. But it seems like there's some commonality there that everyone generally feels like, politics not really have a place in your business.
Sure. I think we have time for one more. My friend Dell Williams has clicked in. So, and by the way, I got to meet Dell in person at Blog World Expo, which was kind of neat. Although the first time I met her, I was still a little dazed from previous things going on. So I was like, but anyway, I think you have to be careful about it. She says the fact is some political issues do affect business owners like taxes and other kinds of mandates and things like that. So I think that, it's a situation where, there's causes that you do have to bring up. There's some that you don't. The guy in my town, by the way, who complains quite often about the tax scenario. I have a very, very small town that taxes of any town in the entire state, and he brings that up all the time. And he's very critical and negative about government. And it works well for him because he's chosen that to be part of his brand. So there's a whole flip side to what we've all been saying, which is if that's your brand and you're like, F you, I'm the bloodiest bloody Republican. I am the Ted Nugent of my neighborhood. I am going to shoot animals and eat them in front of you in my neighborhood. That'll work for you. You're just sort of self-selecting your audience at that point.